So, today we're going to talk about the basics of off-road driving. The patency of a vehicle is its ability to overcome various obstacles. Let's consider what the cross-country ability of the vehicle depends on, what parameters and indicators affect it: road clearance, suspension, wheel pressure, angle of departure, driving actuator, engine power and torque, geometric flotation ability, tire type, vehicle weight distribution, and extra equipment. Road clearance is the same as ground clearance. The higher the clearance, the better the cross-country ability of the vehicle. It depends on the diameter of the wheel. In a good wheel all-terrain vehicle, the clearance is slightly less than half the diameter of the wheel. The round clearance of passenger cars does not allow them to drive on dirt roads with a developed track. Conventional wheeled ATVs and ATVs have a ground clearance in the range of 9 to 11 inches, which allows them to drive off-road, including dirt roads with a developed track. Off-road trucks have a ground clearance of 11 to 15 inches. Heavy military trucks and timber trucks have a ground clearance of 14 to 15 inches. Thus, on a dirt road broken by trucks, it is possible to speak of predicted continuous movement only for all-terrain vehicles with a ground clearance of 13 inches and above. Our all-terrain vehicle has a fantastic ground clearance of over 17 inches, which is more than that of any modern tank. The suspension is responsible for the ride and traction of the wheels. In the absence of a suspension, there is no smoothness. The entire shock load falls on the axles of all-terrain vehicle and its transmission, which leads to its rapid failure. Axles and half shafts of wheels break, all seals fail. It is impossible to drive such an all-terrain vehicle off-road at normal speed due to strong shaking. A serious load falls on the spine of the driver and the passengers of the all-terrain vehicle. In the absence of a suspension or when the suspension travel is very small, in off-road conditions, periodic hanging of wheels occurs, that is, separation of wheels from contact with the surface. Naturally, that negatively affects the permeability. Our all-terrain vehicle is the only one of all existing amphibious all-terrain vehicles with a suspension, which has a side-turning system. This became possible due to the abandonment of a mechanical transmission in favor of an electric one. Wheel pressure on the ground. In general, lower ground pressure will increase flotation. There are, of course, exceptions. This is when weak soils have a capacity of about 7 inches. In this case, the permeability is higher for heavy equipment, which can cut through weak soils with its wheels, reach strong soils, and move along them. Reducing ground pressure is achieved by changing tire sizes, increasing the width of the tires, decrease in tire pressure, which leads to an increase of the contact patch of the tire and the ground, installation of the oversized wheels, which leads to an increase in the mass of the wheels, a greater weight of equipment, and a greater load on the transmission and engine. Increasing the number of wheels, installing low-pressure tires on the vehicle. The ground pressure of these tires is very low, almost like that of tracked vehicles. They almost do not damage vegetation during their movement. They have high cross-country ability. These wheels have their drawback. Installing low-pressure tires on the equipment that was not originally designed for them leads to unnecessary stress on the transmission and engine. The axle shafts of such a technique break almost on every trip, due to the fact that the ground pressure of such wheels is low. Their adhesion to the surface is also low. Therefore, it is often impossible to move uphill on slippery soils with this technique. An icy slope, a slope on which snow melts, wet grass on a slope, or a smooth moist clay slope, these are serious, often insurmountable obstacles to this technique. Also, transport on low-pressure tires feels very bad on rivers, where there is at least small current. In addition, low-pressure tires have much lower durability than conventional tires. It is not difficult to pierce them. The installation of low-pressure tires leads to a significant increase in the dimensions of all-terrain vehicle. In our Green Scout, we use standard ATV tires on all 6 wheels. The contact patch with the ground in this case is very large. Our all-terrain vehicle has an extremely low specific pressure on the ground, which significantly increases its cross-country ability. Angles of departure are angles formed by the ground, wheel and vehicle body. The higher an overhang angle, the higher the geometric passability of the technique. Ideally, the ATV's wheel protrudes from the body. In an all-terrain vehicle, the very design is implemented in which the wheels extend beyond the body. Driving actuator. For off-road vehicles, they try to use four-wheel drive, that is when all the axes of the vehicle can rotate simultaneously. It is ideal when all wheels can turn at the same time. Since in Green Scout we use an electric transmission, The drive goes to all wheels at once. At the same time, we can turn off any wheel or pair of wheels through the controllers, or turn the sides by breaking all the wheels of one of the sides through the all-terrain vehicle computer. Engine power and torque. In fact, engine horsepower is not a serious indicator for cross-country ability. Heavy off-road trucks and even tanks of World War II have the less power than many modern SUVs and much less power than sports cars. The lower limit for off-road vehicles is around 10 horsepower, and the engine power is the range of 20 to 40 horsepower. Torque is another matter. For an all-terrain vehicle, it is very important that it provides the start torque and the ability of the terrain vehicle to move through the deep mud. Considering a conventional all-terrain vehicle, it is necessary to know the importance of the structural strength of the motor transmission chassis. Under off-road conditions, all these elements are mechanically connected to each other and depend on loads. When stuck in mud, when the wheels are not spinning, drivers try to pull out with all their might on the gas. At the same time, the torque that is transmitted from the motor to the transfer case and gearbox can damage these components of the machine. More so, with a high torsion load when driving off-road, the motor experiences an increased load and can fail at any time. But for example, electric or hydraulic drive does not have such problems off-road. We use an electric drive in our all-terrain vehicle. Green Scout's power is 24 horsepower, but all this power goes directly to the wheels in contrast to the manual transmission, where power is measured on the motor. If we compare our Green Scout all-terrain vehicle with ordinary all-terrain vehicles, then in order to achieve a power of 24 horsepower on wheels, it's necessary to have a motor on 40 horsepower and more. In addition, since we use wheel motors, we can receive peak power directly from them. That's how we get the frantic acceleration from the spot. As an example, you can look at the modern electric cars that have a starting acceleration comparable to supercars. Geometric flotation ability is the ability of an all-terrain vehicle to overcome various obstacles, slopes, ditches, pits. We have already considered the ground clearance and overhang angles. Let's also know the angle of the ramp, that is the maximum angle that a vehicle can overcome without touching the surface with its bottom. This angle depends on the wheelbase of the vehicle. For small off-road vehicles with more than 4 wheels, this angle does not exist. Our Green Scout all-terrain vehicle has the ideal geometric cross-country ability for its class. Tire type. When switching from road to swam tire, the cross-country ability of the all-terrain vehicle increases significantly. On our ATV, we can supply any type of tire from an ATV, scooter or motorcycle, exclusively at our request. In any case, drifting on this side is much easier on ball tires. Vehicle weight distribution. To improve cross-country ability, it is beneficial that the center of the gravity of the all-terrain vehicle is as low as possible and is evenly distributed along all axes. Green Scout is designed with perfect weight distribution. A third of the all-terrain vehicle's mass falls on the wheels. They are evenly spaced along the sides of the all-terrain vehicle and are naturally located below the body, which increases stability when driving on slopes. One third of the mass falls on the batteries, which are located in the center of the all-terrain vehicle and are mounted in its bottom. The remaining third of the mass is evenly distributed throughout the body of the all-terrain vehicle. Extra equipment. For an all-terrain vehicle, a winch is simply necessary, and it's not even a matter of using a winch to pull it out of the mud. When crossing rivers or climbing slopes, it often turns out that the steepness of the slope exceeds the capabilities of any all-terrain vehicle. The use of a winch allows you to raise the all-terrain vehicle to a steep wall. For an amphibious all-terrain vehicle, it is also desirable to have a boat motor, as it will increase the speed of movement on the water surface. As for crossing rivers with a fast current, a boat motor will provide the possibility of forcing these rivers. The presence of an awning and a stove does not directly affect the off-road qualities of the all-terrain vehicle, but it creates comfort for the driver and passengers of the all-terrain vehicle, which will allow them to solve the problems of off-road driving more successfully. Availability of free space on the ATV matters a lot too. The large space allows you to carry a variety of tools and attachments to help you on your off-road journey, such as extra rope, a chainsaw, an axe, a shovel, a ground anchor, and a generator.